If you can hear the sound of my voice, say good morning. It's great to see you. We're going to start with hymn number 201. If you want a hymnal, they're on a cart just back there, but they'll be on the screen. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Please rise.
Good morning. Happy Sunday. Welcome to our service. Whether you're with us online or here in person, we are so glad you're here. I'm Courtney O'Neill, your worship associate for today's service. Our preacher today is Reverend Dr. Roger Jones. On the 1st of August, Roger began his 17th year serving as the minister for UUSS. Today, his sermon is titled Toxic Soup American Style, Cultivating Serenity Without Surrendering Your Values. We are also joined today by our pianist, Irina Tchantceva, singer and instrumentalist Barbara Dace, as well as Beth Tenpass as a song leader. Reverend Lucy is leading a spiritual retreat. Anthony, our beloved music director, is at a conference, but he's coming back. And he is inviting everyone to an event this Wednesday that he is calling Rackus Hymn Night. He said we will be singing a variety of our favorite hymns, plus some new selections. We will present some twists and some surprises. Lead sheets will be available for various instruments, so if you happen to play an instrument, bring it along. Snacks, beverages, and percussion instruments will also be available. All are welcome here this Wednesday at 7 p.m. If you'd like to know what's happening in the service today or follow the music in the service, copies of the order of service are at the back table. by the doors, and you can click on the link in our Zoom chat. The blue sheet, can someone wave a blue sheet? Blue sheet, thank you. The blue sheet weekly calendar of activities is also on the back table, and it is also online. If you are new to UUSS, we extend a special welcome to you for the service. We ask you please to fill out a newcomer's card, either using the link on our website or at the welcome table after the service so that we can connect with you. In the summer, we send out a bi-weekly message by email, and the next one is coming out this Friday with a minister's reflection by Reverend Roger and updates on activities within UUSS. Here, though, is a reminder of some important things going on. Next Sunday is our monthly orientation for newcomers with a tour of the campus. Reverend Roger and Mary Howard will be leading it, and all are welcome. You don't have to be new if you want to take a tour. It starts 10 minutes after the service, and it goes until 1 p.m. Now, today at noon, art and architecture historian and UUSS member Meira Korba will give a talk about Shinto architecture of Shinto, the indigenous religion of Japan, illustrated by slides. It will start at noon in the FOS room with a few snacks, hosted by the Adult Enrichment Committee, and Meira welcomes all ages to her talk. It's free, but donations are welcome. We have an opportunity to help Sacramento Family Promise, which supports newly homeless families with children. On Thursday, August 15th, volunteers can assist with light gardening and housekeeping at their tiny homes or by cooking breakfast on August 24th for the families. You can stop by the table near the main door after today's service to speak with our member Elise Mattoon. She has a list of needed supplies and food items if you'd like to help in that way. Elise, could you stand up just so people know? Oh, thank you, Elise. Today, after the service on Zoom, we will have 22 minutes of conversation, so don't go anywhere after that final hymn. We will have those conversations in smaller breakout rooms for those who are with us at home. Here on campus, you can check out the connections table in the hall and enjoy refreshments and fellowship on our covered patio. And now it is that time to please check your cell phone. Ensure that it is on silent mode and that all alarms are off. We do this to assist everyone in being more present and more mindful. And, of course, if a neighbor's phone goes off during the service, kindly offer to help them take care of it. This is one way that we are a loving and caring community. And now Roger has one more announcement to make.
Good morning. Good morning, good morning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here if you're here online. I want to mention that this Tuesday evening, our adult enrichment program will start a three-part series entitled Scenes from the City of David, exploring the political roots of Jerusalem's most sacred traditions and their lasting impact on the Middle East region today. We will look at some of the earliest Bible stories and the ongoing history of Jerusalem. I will be hosting the author, Noah Kennedy. And Noah, would you rise? Noah's right there. Welcome. Noah just moved to Sacramento, and he offered to lead this discussion even before arriving here. Noah will be out at the Adult Enrichment Connections table after the service for conversation, and it will be this Tuesday at 6:30 in the FOS room is when we start. There's a flyer there you could pick up to remind you. Now, as we hear the music for centering, you may come forward to fill out a prayer card to let the ministers know of any news that should be included in today's joys and sorrows, or you may just light a candle on the table, or both.
I'd like to invite up Sally White and her grandson Raphael to light the chalice today. Raphael is almost 12 years old and he is a drummer. The symbol of the flaming chalice represents our broader Unitarian Universalist religious heritage. And as we light it this morning, we affirm our connections to congregations across this country and all around the world. Please respond in unison to the words in bold once they're on the screen. We kindle this flame, the symbol of our shared search for truth and understanding. In times of celebration, may its brightness reflect our gratitude. In times of need, let its warmth renew our connections to one another and to the spirit of life. In times of confusion or uncertainty, may its fire bring courage and commitment. In times of change, let its light illuminate our values. Let us join in reciting the mission statement for this congregation. We come together to deepen our lives and be a force for healing in the world. It's still me. Now we want to invite the kids out for the summer RE program for some artwork, singing, "You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Lift up your hearts. Don't you despair. Look up ahead. The path is there. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. You gotta put one foot in front of the other and lead with love. Put one foot in front of the other and lead with love.
So good morning. Whoops, I'm too close. All right, I'm Barbara Dace. Hi there. The key to a truly democratic election is getting out the vote, particularly in purple states where the vote could go either way. The most effective way to do this is door-to-door canvassing, which wouldn't make too much sense here because we live in a very blue state. But the second most effective method is mailing get-out-the-vote messages to voters in those purple states. Pat Skeels, Joyce Ownby, and I have started a project to do that, and we hope you'll join us. The Progressive Turnout Project prints and ships the postcards for free with address lists, suggestions for messages, and instructions. We just need to write the messages, address them, and stamp them, which takes a little more than 1 minute. I've timed it. We appreciate donations to repay for the stamps that we bought, but if you can't fit that into your budget, it is okay. We will pay for the stamps. I've ordered 500 postcards, and response has been so good they're almost all gone now, but I've ordered 500 more. And we're also working with Vote Forward, which does which helps us write letters to underrepresented minorities. Instructions and suggested messages are also included in each letter packet, and Pat Skeels has those. We plan to be available in the Welcome Hall after the service today and for pretty much every service coming up until September. The messages do not have to be sent out until October 15th, so you got plenty of time. You can pick up materials and write at home or join the team after the service and write a postcard or two, whatever you want to do, or a letter. I've noticed that since I began doing something constructive and positive to help democratize this election, my anxiety about it has decreased substantially. As a pharmacist, I find this a very welcome side effect. You may also find it therapeutic, so I hope y'all give it a try. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara and Pat and Joyce and everybody else. This is in coordination with or congruence with our denominations project called UU the Vote. And I was organized before I got here. This is a caring community, and we reflect this in our sharing of joys and sorrows, hopes, and prayers. If you have news for a future Sunday service, you can let the ministers know by clicking the link in the Joys and Sorrows section of this coming Friday's email, or you can contact us directly. A few things that were mentioned. A concern among us. My pets are in their elder years, and I don't feel like I'm giving them the best care I want to due to financial limitations and others. Aubrey offers a sorrow and a prayer for her sister Gail, who has been taken to the emergency room in Hanford, California. Jorge has both a joy and sorrow and prayer. The joy is his mom's 85th birthday coming up on Tuesday, and the sorrow is that his father is on his decline with dementia. Barbara asks for a prayer of hope for Sister Dolores, who's looking for a job. Cynthia says, praying for my sister Debbie, who is returning home this week after 4 months in long-term care. May she feel courageous, at ease, and surrounded by love. Tate is mourning the losses of those impacted by the park fire, with love for Cat Mando, a tabby, found to have been lost in his family's home last week. Though feral for most of his life, he was loved by his community in Forest Ranch. Micah and Maria note the sorrow of the passing of our dear dog, Jigsy. He crossed the Rainbow Bridge with calm, quiet dignity as he lived. We have a number of people that we're remembering, including Sarah Patton, our member, as she continues to struggle toward the return of health and vitality. We send our wishes also for continued healing to Duncan Barrow after emergency retina surgery, and to Alice Mercer after surgery for thyroid cancer, and for others in our circles of care and affection who need strength and love and healing. We have a number of joys expressed here. Raphael and Sally both lit a candle to say that they find it a joy to be here with their grandma and their grandson lighting the chalice. Patty celebrating my daughter's moving back to Elk Grove from Ecuador. And Becca expresses a joy. My friend Lucy is coming over at 4 today for a sleepover. And Michael lets us know of the joy. My sister Shannon and her husband Ash welcomed their son Austin into the world on July 26. A few days ago, we marked the 100th anniversary of the birth, actually yesterday, the 100th anniversary of the birth of James Baldwin, the great novelist, essayist, playwright, and social critic, who put the ethic of love into all that he wrote. Let us give thanks to the artists who enrich our lives, and thanks to the critics who urge us toward a better world. It's a joy and relief that 24 people have been released from unjust imprisonment in Russia and are now back home. After nearly 6 years away, the American journalist Evan Gershkovich is bearing witness to the plight of countless Russian political prisoners who remain in captivity, held by the regime there. So many ordinary people around the world are seeking only survival and a safe place to call home. As we pray for the suffering and injustice to end, let us bear witness to the human rights to safety, dignity, and the freedom to flourish. As we prepare for a time of deepening in word and silence, come now into an awareness of your body, wherever you may be, whether you're seated or reclining, standing, and relax your eyes, whether open or closed. Relax your shoulders, your neck, and breathe. And notice the flow of your breathing in and out. And after I speak these words of prayer, we will share a time of silence followed by music. O breath of life, whom we feel in the rising of an in-breath, enliven us for the gift of this new day. Bless all those whom we hold in our hearts at this time. O Spirit of love, whom we know by countless demonstrations of courage and compassion, be with us now and in all the days to come. Help us to share strength and encouragement with one another. Remind us of what we know, that each of us has the power to practice patience, to show kindness, to nourish peace. O Spirit of life and love, renew our connections to all members of the human family and to all beings who share this planet with us. May all be safe. May all be peaceful. May all be free. And may all our days be blessed with gratitude for every good gift. So may it be. Blessed be, and amen. Now let us share a time of silence.
We'll remain seated for this hymn. all be well. May all be filled with loving kindness. May all be well. May all be filled with loving kindness. May all be well. May all be peaceful and at ease. May all be whole. When I look at the state of the world now, in this current moment, it's easy for me to feel overwhelmed. Pain, outrage, and uncertainty seem present in every news story, on every social media page. Adding to the discomfort of all of that, I sometimes feel exhausted by the lack of empathy and the general seeming inability to hold space for different perspectives. I've also noticed that this stress and polarization that's occurring on a national level can trickle down into my personal relationships, adding an extra layer sometimes of tension or anxiety to certain interactions. I was talking with my husband recently about an awkward discussion that I had with a family member. This family member had wanted to give us some books which were intended to indoctrinate kids to a specific political ideology. I knew that this family member had meant well, but I had to set a boundary with them around what I was and was not comfortable with. And when we had that conversation, I felt terrible. I was so upset for my family member, worried that they were going to feel hurt and rejected. Now, this worry didn't stop me from having the conversation, but when I was debriefing later with my husband, I felt overwhelmed and consumed with exhaustion, sadness, and self-doubt. During that conversation, Michael said all of the good things that a partner should. He validated my feelings. He agreed that the conversation had been tough but necessary. And then he said something that really stuck with me. He said, "We need to remember to give grace, not excuses." His words really summed up the conflict that I was feeling in that moment. I knew that my family member was coming from a place of such love and worry, and I empathized very strongly with that. I was able to give them grace. But I was fighting a strong urge to apologize or to make excuses for myself because I was setting a boundary. I was struggling to simply communicate my feelings, let the chips fall where they may, and allow my family member to have their own reaction. Give grace, but not excuses. I'm not exaggerating when I say that I think about this phrase now every day. It helps me navigate work situations, family dynamics, parenting, any situation really where I'm encountering a perspective that is different or perhaps in conflict with my own. And what's interesting for me is that sometimes I switch up the wording in my head. Sometimes in these situations, I find myself thinking, don't give excuses, but do remember to give grace. And that switch in emphasis, it's important to me. It helps me remember to ground myself in my values, but also to tap into empathy. I may not agree with what someone is saying, but do I understand where they're coming from? Do I need to assert a boundary in this moment, or is it enough to simply extend grace? The dysfunction of today's world can be disheartening and challenging. And as I make my way through, I'm trying to meet each interaction with an open heart. And I'm trying to hold grace for myself and for others without compromising my own values or integrity. I'm acting on the premise that everyone I meet in any interaction is trying their best. And so am I.
Every sense and mind agrees, an artist lives in all of these, one who knows intrinsically such things are finely done, such things are finely done. The forest turns to summer for a billion shades of green, as the sea turns to the sunlight for bright aquamarine. The way that my love turns to me to say that we are one. Every sense and mind agrees, an artist lives in all of these, one who knows intrinsically such things are finely done, such things are finely done. La, 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 every sense and mind agrees, an artist lives in all of these, one who knows intrinsically such things are finely done, such things are finely done. Some say it was a big bang, others 7 days, but in this clockwork universe, with its convoluted ways, there's doubt for those with evidence and faith for those with none. But every sense and mind agrees, an artist lives in all of these, one who knows intrinsically such things are finely done, such things are finely done.
Hello, I'm Beth Tenpass, and I have the pleasure of singing with Barbara in the choir. That was beautiful. Thank you. Now is the time for our offertory. Generosity is a spiritual practice. This congregation has a practice of giving away half of each Sunday's offering to an organization that is working to make a difference in the world. Our community partner for the month of August is Loaves and Fishes. Loaves and Fishes is the largest service provider in Sacramento for the unhoused. For over 40 years, they have provided warm meals, essential survival supplies, and services for nearly 1,000 adults and children every day. To keep our services barrier-free, they do not solicit or accept government funds and are supported instead by the investment of individuals and private donations. Thank you for your generosity to UUSS and our community partner. This morning's offering will now be given and received.
As Patty and Fred come forward with our offerings, please join us in our unison response. May generosity bless our world, and may gratitude nourish our spirits. In case you didn't see the description for the sermon today from the website or the email, I should tell you what it says. It says this: so many of us are stewing in the deadly soup of polarized politics, disinformation campaigns, widespread suffering, and a lack of civility and respect. It's indeed a scary time in U.S. history, and it hurts our spirits. Is it possible to confront untruth and violence, as well as to recognize the shared humanity of those who threaten our visions for a just and free society? I hope it is possible. Doing so, however, will take most of us beyond the edge of our comfort zones. It will be hard work. You may think that I assume that everyone here is from the same political party or identity, but I know that is not the case. Or you may be surprised to hear that we have a range of political perspectives and identities in Unitarian Universalist congregations, but we do. However, I think that range has narrowed in recent years. That is, many of our deceased Republican Unitarians are probably turning in their graves since their party has turned to Christian fundamentalist nationalism and a cult-like devotion to Donald Trump. It has tried, that is, the party of Trump has tried to take away the freedom to make choices about your own body and your own relationships. Given our political diversity historically as Unitarian Universalists over our 2 centuries in this country, you might ask, what has held us together in community? I believe it is our liberal religious values. Our values have held us together and called us forward. One value, the first principle, is the dignity and inherent worth of every person. Another value, the 7th principle, is interdependence. People are connected. We need one another. We need connections which are authentic and respectful. And another value, another principle, is democracy. And not just the principle of it, but the practice of it in our congregations and the society at large. And this value is in danger, and it needs our help. In many countries where democratic norms have been widely accepted and followed for decades, autocratic movements are seizing power. In this country as well, personal freedom and human decency are under attack. A radical right-wing movement has its choice for president, and they have a chance of winning in November. And they have been clear about their purposes if they do win. Fretting about these dangers has caused me to wake up in the middle of the night and have trouble getting back to sleep. I've decided that I shouldn't read articles about politics after dinner. I don't watch cable TV news, but I hear enough just on public radio to get me stirred up. Notifications on my phone also agitate me. I try to minimize how much social media I receive, but I'm aware that YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter X captivate a lot of people. My impression and my worry is that all of this is fueling rage, polarization, and mistrust in our fellow human beings. I fear this leads to helplessness and isolation. Something else I fear, especially for myself, is the phenomenon of watching versus doing. A few years ago, I read that if progressive-minded Americans were to spend as much time working on election campaigns as we do in reading about polls and surveys, or in watching commentators tell us their opinions about political strategies, if we did that, we could change election outcomes. Individual involvement can be pivotal in city, county, school district, and statewide campaigns. Even for national campaigns, volunteers can motivate people to vote who otherwise might neglect to turn in a ballot. Moreover, doing something productive gives us a sense of purpose and hope. It connects us to our communities. Democracy relies on human-to-human connections. Democracy depends on respect, personal commitment, courage, and a sense of shared humanity. Autocracy, on the other hand, depends on fear and violence. For example, on January 6 of 2021, President Trump incited a mob of supporters to break into the U.S. Capitol so he could stay in power. As they ransacked the place, they wanted to apprehend elected officials or even kill them, including Vice President Pence. a wooden gallows with a noose was erected on Capitol grounds. Yet even after all of those representatives had to hide from this violence, all those representatives and senators had to hide, only 7 Republican senators voted to convict the president in his second impeachment trial. 43 of them voted not guilty. It seems to me that in a healthy democracy, presidents fear losing the support of the members of their party. In an autocracy, however, party members fear the person at the top. I'd like to describe a few more features of autocratic and fascist movements. For example, while it's not uncommon for a regular politician, to be caught lying or at least exaggerating, autocrats tell outlandish lies, and they keep repeating them. And by repeating them, repeatedly hearing them, some people will believe the lies, and they'll want to. But hearing those lies repeated and accepted, other citizens will become demoralized and give up. Autocrats accuse their opponents of doing the very thing that they are attempting to do. They cry out that they are persecuted while they plan, carry out, and lead the persecution of other people. While autocratic leaders take pleasure in being cruel, they don't seem to have a sense of humor. Of course, laughing at politicians and other public figures is a big feature of a free society, but autocrats cannot laugh at themselves. They don't like to be made fun of or satirized. Fortunately, we have no shortage of material to keep us laughing as we work to stop them. Plans for a next Trump administration are not funny, however. They're outlined in Project 2025, a document funded and created by dozens of right-wing foundations. This document shows replacing civil servants with Trump appointees and using the U.S. Justice Department to go after so-called enemies of Trump. Yet following the autocrats' playbook, it is Trump who says that judicial systems around the country have been, quote, weaponized against him. Usually, fascist movements pursue their goals gradually. They begin by attacking the rights and the safety of the most vulnerable or misunderstood people in a society. And then, as the public gets used to the first assaults, those in power target other groups. More people get labeled as dangerous and inferior. As an example, some states have begun passing laws against the rights of transgender students and transgender adults. Another example is when undocumented immigrants and asylum seekers are labeled by politicians as the worst of the worst, even though many of them are families escaping persecution, poverty, and crime. These are things that wake me up in the middle of the night, and I know they worry many of you. These are things that our shared values call us to confront. It's hard. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes it helps me to remember the Serenity prayer. In its current form, it says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Doing this, saying this, is not an escape for me, nor is it surrender. For me, it's like taking a breath, clearing my head. I want to be clear enough to see what's going on and to see what I can do. Autocratic leaders try to suppress the news media and ideally to take it over. Manufacturing and controlling the news helps them create the narrative which everyone is expected to follow and spread. When propaganda is doing its magic on people, They have a view on reality that could be as unmovable by someone like me or you as it is unbelievable to us. This next month, I will take a trip to my native state to see people in my hometown and in the city where I attended college. Not every part of a visit home is easy, especially with relatives of mine who keep their favorite cable TV news channel going in the background while we visit. As I try to listen and talk, I'm distracted by the outrageously blunt assertions by the news personalities, even if nobody in the room stops to point it out or mention it. If by chance on one of these visits somebody brings up a topic on politics or asks me a question directly, I do try to answer. I try to be true to our UU values. But if a person just blurts out an obnoxious opinion, I resist the temptation to argue. Grant me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, I tell myself. It's worth a chance. On my next visit home, I may ask if we could turn the volume off so I can hear you better. Or I may ask if we could do our catching up during a walk or maybe at a dinner at a restaurant. Of course, I don't have to go back to the Midwest to hear scary political opinions. One morning last month, I was hanging out at one of the places where I have coffee, reading my phone. At a table nearby were two regulars who happened to be chatting with each other, a white man about 70 years old and a white woman in her late 80s. Though I agree with his politics, I like her better. I've seen her watching Fox News Channel on her phone. How could she, I wonder? That is, she attends a liberal Christian congregation. And we have found common ground in talking about helping people who are unhoused. So the man told her, I have a question for you, just in the spirit of dialogue. We both receive Social Security benefits, right? He asked her. Yes, she said. She noted that hers was pretty good. Aren't you afraid they'll take that away if Republicans get elected, he said. She replied, we need Trump. Biden is ruining this country. Immigration is terrible. The man brought up Trump's morals. She said, I don't care about Trump's fooling around. Other presidents have been unfaithful too. With each assertion that I overheard, heat rose up in my chest and throbbed at my temples. Yes, but I kept wanting to interject. Aren't you missing this or that? But I pretended I wasn't listening. Just like the blaring TV in my relative's living room. I thought to myself, she's not any more interested in hearing my perspective than I am really interested in exploring hers. So don't bother. And then she said that President Obama was communistically inclined. Ha! I laughed out loud. I couldn't help myself. And hearing me, the man asked me if I would join the conversation. I said I needed to get to work. But really, I just needed to get away. As I walked out to the parking lot, I was steaming. You know, I felt like screaming before I left, but that would have got me thrown out of the place, So I walked to the parking lot and I saw the car that I knew was hers. And the heat rose up again in my chest and I felt it in my head. I wonder how I could vandalize her car. I asked myself. And then I thought, could I get away with it? Maybe I'll save it for another day. In that moment, I felt really serious. I was that upset. I hadn't merely tasted the toxic soup, I had fallen into the pot. God, grant me the serenity to accept what I cannot change, especially when I cannot change another person's reality by arguing with them, much less by yelling at them. Spiritually speaking, one of the hardest things about these painful times that we're living in is that no matter how angry or upset we get with people, we are called to remember their humanity, our common humanity. Even if we fantasize about telling them off, or worse, it's up to us to remember the humanity of those whose opinions worry and scare us. While doing this is hard, it can empower us to remind our opponents of the humanity of those that they seek to demonize and hurt. The great African-American writer James Baldwin said it this way: "One cannot deny the humanity of another without diminishing one's own." He did not make any exceptions. In spite of the violence and the hatred to which he bore witness and which he wanted America to recognize and confront, Baldwin called us to our common humanity. But this does not mean giving up. It actually means continuing to speak up about what we value. You and I need to be clear in speaking about this. We don't have to convince others, but we need to be able to say, these are my values. This is what I care about. And this is why. We can start this by practicing with one another. We can explain why we see things as we do. We can do this with a personal story of our own or about someone we care about. We don't need to convince everybody, only to speak faithfully to our values. However, we don't need to feel that we have to do this if somebody doesn't want to listen. We don't have to put ourselves or keep ourselves in that situation. Fortunately, there are many Americans who do listen. There are many who are open to a conversation, especially if they feel respected. This is where we can rise above the toxic soup of antagonism. Many people need to hear that their participation can make a difference, that their vote can make a difference. As we know from our nationwide project called You, the Vote, and from the other organizations that Barbara spoke about earlier when she was talking about our voter mobilization project, as we know, sending personal mail is the second most effective means of motivating someone to vote when they might otherwise neglect to do so. The number one effective means of encouraging others to vote is by personal conversation. This can be done one-to-one with a neighbor, or it can be organized through phone banks, or it can be done canvassing door to door. Volunteers like us can be trained to call voters in other states. I know some volunteers in our congregation who are taking road trips to canvass door to door in other states. Even though there's training and support available for volunteers like us, this can be daunting. It always is for me, until the moment I knock on the door or someone answers the phone, and then I'm too engaged in repeating my opening words to worry about. And after I've completed a shift of calling people or writing people or knocking on doors, I feel much better. It can feel good to write a stack of postcards to people that we'll never meet, and encourage them to register and vote. Reaching out in this way is one way to recognize our shared humanity with other people. It respects their power and urges them to use it. This kind of thing may seem intimidating, or you may feel just too stretched for this kind of work. If so, remember that monetary support is always necessary and helpful. Donations to voter mobilization projects like UU the Vote will pay for technology, staff, and training materials. Donations to your chosen candidates will help them to travel, organize rallies, buy food for staff and volunteers, and pay for advertising. However we might show up for democracy, it can make a difference. The number of people who take the time to vote in this election can determine the makeup of the U.S. House and Senate. It will determine who sits in the White House. Bill McKibben is a writer and an activist against climate change. McKibben is a progressive Christian whose faith commitments look nothing like the conventions of Christian nationalists who provide a cult following for Donald Trump. McKibben is a founder of organizations like 350.org and thirdact.org. When he was asked what an individual can do to protect people and democracy and the planet, he said, "The most important thing an individual can do is be a little less of an individual. Join together with others. Join in movements large enough to make change." Doing the work of protecting democratic norms and promoting our values can bring us out of passivity and helplessness, out of passivity into a sense of purpose. It can bring us out of isolation into community. We, the people, can do what seems overwhelming to me, the individual. I told you earlier that saying the Serenity prayer helps me when I'm feeling upset and overwhelmed by the plight of the world. It's worth noting that the original version of this prayer is worded in a different way, with us instead of me. It was not written as a personal prayer, but as a community prayer. Reinhold Niebuhr, a Protestant seminary professor and a progressive activist, wrote that prayer 90 years ago for a summer service in a church on a lake in western Massachusetts. Niebuhr was worried sick about the Nazi takeover of Germany's government in 1933, just a year earlier than when he wrote this prayer. And in it, he was calling on God's help, not for himself, but for all who shared his worries and his hopes. And it goes like this: give us grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, courage to change the things that should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish the one from the other. The difference between the words me and us is the point on which democracy depends. So may we live together, and so may it be. Blessed be, and amen.
Let's tap into some of that serenity as we sing our final hymn, number 121, We'll Build a Land. Please rise and body your spirit as you're able. We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll build a land where the captives go free. Where they say full of gladness is songs of morning. Oh, we'll build a promised land that can be. Oh, build a land where all of our kindred, anointed by God, Please remain standing as we extinguish the chalice by saying our chalice extinguishing words once they appear on the screen. It's coming. We extinguish this flame, but we carry the light, love, and commitment of this gathering into the days to come.
I invite you to reach out to us as we reach out to you. Reach out to one another. If you're at home, reach out to us as we reach out to you. May you depart in peace and be led forth in joy. For all who see God, may God go with you. For all who embrace life, may life return your affection. And for all who seek a right path, may a way be found and the courage to take it step by step, one day at a time. Blessed be. Amen.